Okay, so we got our custom radiator support all welded up and painted on both sides, and I just used some leftover paint because it's a race car, it doesn't really matter. Eventually the whole car will get converted to red because, very unpopular opinion, a Porsche is not a Porsche unless it's red. So anyway, I'm gonna get flamed for that, but you can see we just welded it up. We tried to grind as much smooth as we can, especially the areas here where the radiator is going to be touching. And now we got some foam tape or weather strip or whatever. It's closed cell foam, so it doesn't hold water. Although we're gonna have to cut it down to size. We're gonna cut it to match the sizes, and we're gonna cover all this in foam. So when it's touching the radiator, there's a foam gasket, not only protecting the radiator because this is steel, which will rub through aluminum, but because you don't want any air leak around the fans or the oil cooler. So this, random ass stuff that I use all over the car is going to work very, very nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera, and then we'll come back and get the fans bolted on. And there we have it. It's not pretty, but again, it's a race car. Just lined everything with foam except the bottom of the radiator because there's a lot of pressure on there already. I need to clean that up. But what I did is I left a little cutout here for water to kind of get down and away, and then I left here and here open for water to kind of get down and away. Now we got to bolt the main fans on, and hopefully they fit. Well, we have run into a problem, which is that I am going to probably have to use a M22 banjo bolt, which is very, very, very expensive for some reason because this just barely doesn't clear. It's just not gonna clear. And we really need to go that way or up and away from the radiator. So this whole thing is now on pause until I can find an M22 banjo, high flow banjo, I guess. I know they make a four port, there's 4 holes around the bolt, which then give you better flow, but they're like, I want to say it was $60 each, which is a total and complete ripoff. But I guess I'm not going to have a choice. So just a side note here, I am working on making diverters to keep the air from escaping down these big gaping holes in the bumper, because you want your air pressure to come through the front of the car and straight through the radiator. You don't want these escapes for the pressure to go off to the side. So I 3D scanned, and I have been prototyping some steel plates to either bolt or weld in, and this is the second prototype and it's coming out good. Just need to move some bolt holes around, and I think we'll be ready to install it. Okay, just to show you guys the almost final result, we've got both plates. This one's got a bracket for a riv nut here, riv nut here, riv nut here. This one will just bolt to the bumper here and here, and there's some small air gaps left. However, I'll be using this really nice thick rubber gasket all the way around it. All the way around. That should seal up most of the holes left over. If not, I'll have to cut another design. And over here you can see it fits pretty good. A couple, maybe lift that up a little bit and kind of cover that better. But I think that came out pretty good. So, I know you guys think I'm crazy, but I am so proud of how this came out. I mean, I am basically blocking any airflow from escaping from the radiator. Even down up in here, I left a little room for my headlights. Just ignore that. Over here, the same. Down in, room for the wire harness, which I need to, I need to do something about that, but anyway, I am super proud of this. I think it's gonna work great. Okay, in order to get the radiator tank to fit, I had to hammer this bracket over and then cut part of it out, and the tank still really doesn't fit very well. This screw here is kind of in the way. This one's actually above the tank. So I need to cut this out, basically all of this out, but I can't do that because my headlights are being held up by that. So I 3D scanned this frame and created a new headlight bracket that fits right on. So I am going to quickly interject into my own video and just real quick show you the 3D scan that I got from the frame with the headlight bracket and the frame rail. So there's the 2 slotted holes down there and then the 2 bolts on the headlight, so we know we can design a bracket from that. So I converted that to a mesh, exported it to Autodesk Fusion, and then came up with this design. So I'm going to try and step through this. So step 1 was bringing in the mesh, but the mesh comes in 10 times too large, so we scaled it down. The mesh isn't on the 0 origin, which is why you don't see anything. So our next step was to draw a flat plate, which is the start of our bracket. And using that flat plate, we then oriented the mesh. So you can see that the mesh is slowly being reoriented. And after we orient the mesh, we create the first part of the plate and line up slots with the holes in the frame. Then we draw up and we cut out extra, and I rounded the corner. Then we went over to the headlight and then drew a flange to the headlight. And then we drew in a reinforcement here, which I really didn't like the way that looked, so I cut away all the extra. Then I rounded all the corners. Then I drew up the slots for the headlight bracket, and I made the slots as wide as I could without compromising the strength if we ever need to adjust the headlight. And then, for whatever unknown reason, I felt the need to put the race number 323 into the bracket, not realizing that in actuality that will be completely covered by the hood mount. But anyway, that's how I did it. So I hope that helps you guys kind of understand a little bit about the scan design process. And now we're going to jump back to your regularly scheduled video. I'm pretty happy with this. I think this came out great for literally, this is the very first try. This 3D scanner is absolutely worth the investment in order to get a good fitting part without too much time and effort. Alright, so we got our air diverters in and we got our new headlight brackets. They came out amazing. I made a small mistake somewhere and had to put a spacer in, but that's fine. The headlights are rock solid now. I say that and then this part is rock solid. Anyway, headlights are rock solid now. I took this screw out and I put foam down here to protect the radiator. And then same over here. This bracket actually is slightly longer. There's something about the way this frame rail is crushed, I'm sure, affected the bracket. And you can see it's also forward more, but it just barely fit, which is awesome. And I love how the 323 I spent so much time on is completely hidden under the hood pins. Very smart. I didn't really think that through. But anyway, we are ready to do a final test fit on the radiator before we have to wait for the engine to come back. All right, and there we have it. 3 weeks later, had some issues getting the banjo fittings, but they are in there now and they fit. We got the radiator fans, the headlight brackets, the air diverters. Everything seems to fit great. It's 1 inch thicker, including the fans, than the old radiator assembly. However, when we go from Camaro to Corvette spacing, we're going to gain 1 inch. So it's going to be close, but this is a much larger, much more powerful radiator and cooling setup. So we will see you guys whenever the engine finally comes back from the builder.
Try not to hold me down, feel alive when I'm in this town. Look at those beautiful stars, I wanna drive